We're going to give you a little bit of an overview of what's going to happen in the next 3 days, why the forum, etc. And Patrick, since you just arrived, I'm going to throw it directly at you, because, of course, EPFL has a big involvement and engagement in this conference. So maybe you will give us a little bit of an overview of why EPFL is hosting the Brain Forum, what do you expect from it, why this engagement?
Is it okay? Okay. So, you know, don't have to tell you that I think the brain is the #1 area of science of the 21st century for a lot of reasons, because first, it's probably one of the last frontier, scientific frontier. The recent progress in technology and engineering, in basic science, in visualization allows, in fact, to look at the brain in a different way. To gather data that we would not think feasible before. So it is really one of the most fascinating research area. At the same time, I think, as much as we have made great progress in our understanding of the brain, this has not translated into new therapies the same way. If you look at the last, let's see, 2 or 3 decades, there have been great progress in cardiology, in oncology, but the brain has not been, as successful in translating this knowledge that we've acquired in new therapies. And with the aging of the population, this is an epidemic to some extent that is just coming. If you look at dementia, Alzheimer, Parkinson, and so on, this is a major issue for aging society. And for now, we have not yet seen. If you look at, I always say, the last 20 years, if you look at the last 20 or 30 years, what has been the biggest medical breakthrough in the nervous system? I would say it's DBS, deep brain stimulation, when you put this electrode into a very specific part of the brain. In fact, it's Alim Ben-Abid, who will be one of the speakers here, that was the father of that has changed really the therapies. And it's interesting, he got the Lashuel Award, which is one of the most prestigious prizes, and usually 50% of them got a Nobel Prize. So I think it's interesting that it didn't come from biotechnology, it came from engineering. And I think this is, the fascinating thing is those science converge between I would say, the regular biology or bioengineering, biotechnology, but engineering and now big data coming into play. And what we've tried with this meeting is to try to put those various communities together, to bring also people from the pharma, from the medical device, like the Medtronics and so on, and have a debate of how can we find better treatments in the years to come. And I think it's not going to be by looking only at one technology, but it's really combining technology. So we need to look at the brain in a different way. On one side, they're quite amazing, and you could see it, and you'll have a couple of presentations of those big brain initiatives. We've seen them in Europe, in the US, in Israel, in China. And at the same time, how can we bring this knowledge to develop new therapies? And I think that's going to be one of the challenges. So to bring all the stakeholders together to try to improve the field.
Professor Lashuel, want to give us an overview of the program of the next 3 days?
Yeah, just to follow up on what Professor Aebischer just stated, it's basically that the Brain Forum was originally founded on the principle that progress is achieved through dialogue, engagement, and collaboration between all the stakeholders involved, not only in shaping the landscape and future of brain research, but also those involved in shaping the policies and driving research. Where we see the value of the W Science and the Brain Forum is not only in supporting neuroscience research, but also in serving as a convening power and the ability to bring people from different groups and key stakeholders into the same room, and the ability to encourage and facilitate dialogue and debate around the challenges of today's and opportunities that can emerge from collaborations. With these ideas in mind, we developed a program with the scientific committee of the Brain Forum with the idea of building, engineering some unique feature into this program. And what you will see from the program, that this is a discussion-oriented meeting, as evidenced by the fact that every session is followed by a panel of discussion. There is commitment to education and engagement and that the forum is open and accessible to both the scientific community and to the public through the open registration process and free access to live streaming channel and recorded lectures, panel discussion, debates, and interviews. Another aspect that is unique to this program is that it aims to promote innovation in neuroscience and brain research by featuring the latest advances in brain research in both academia and industry through the creation of the Brain Forum exhibit and Innovation Corner. I think many of you have have received this brief description of the program. Again, what we've tried to do is not to look at a high-level discussion of where do we stand today with respect to neuroscience and brain research, what are the challenges that are facing, and how all the key stakeholders in academia, industry, and society can play an active role to begin to translate some of the knowledge we have today into new tools, technologies, and products that will improve the quality of life and provide new treatment for brain diseases. The first session for this afternoon focuses on the international brain initiatives, and we're fortunate to be able to gather all the representatives of the leaderships of all the major international, national, regional, and international brain initiatives in one place to tell us about the latest progress that they have made and how we can work together to achieve synergy, complementarity, and effective coordination among these initiatives. Again, we've also brought in people who have committed themselves and their resources personally to drive personal research, neuroscience research. We have a session devoted to philanthropy for brain science, and that will focus basically on the impact of philanthropy and private science on academic research and the opportunities for public-private partnerships for shaping the research priorities in brain research at the national and global levels. And as Professor Aebischer mentioned, tomorrow there will be quite a bit of focus on emerging and new technologies that aim to enhance brain function and help provide new strategies for management and treatment of neurological disorders. And we're, again, very fortunate to be able to bring leaders from the industry to tell us about their latest work and new innovative approach in translating what we know today and what's emerging in neuroscience to new treatments and therapies for neurological diseases. And with that, I'd like to end. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The three people at this table, by the way, are the members of the scientific committee of the conference, together with Dr. Walid Jafali, who you will hear at the beginning of the conference with his opening remarks. Dr. El-Imad, maybe you can point us to a couple of key topics that you think are crucial for the forum, as well as give us a bit of a background on how this came together.
Okay, well, thank you. Basically, the W Science initiative that was started by Dr. Jafari a couple of years ago, Dr. Walid Jafari, had three aspects that we want to set out to achieve. Firstly, to build up a platform for idea exchange. And we chose the brain research as the most significant topic of science today. And this collaboration today with EPFL was an endorsement of the first brain forum we held in 2013. So W Science is about idea exchange. We are embedding research labs in a number of universities where we have joint pioneering developments on new ideas. And we have a third arm of W Science initiative where we can take these ideas rapidly out of the lab and into the people that they were intended to. So the Brain Forum is one offshoot of the W Science initiative that was launched in Switzerland, and we will be propelling it elsewhere. So as far as the event, the whole lineup of speakers is unprecedented. We have some of the world's most renowned scientists and philanthropists, all focusing on neuroscientists, computer scientists. And to me, the first session, the keynote session, is a very, very important session because it brings together the world's in fact, 5 largest brain research initiatives, from John Donoghue to Henry Makram, Nancy Ip, Rafi Gidron, and of course Chris Koch. They will be speaking in the first session after Dr. Jafari's opening keynote. And throughout that, there is a multidisciplinary approach to how we're taking this event. As Professor Aebischer said, it's about bringing together a multitude of disciplines, since one discipline will not be, on its own, cannot solve this problem. And throughout the program, which we've seen, there is a very exciting different approaches from neurogeneration to, as Professor Hilal talked about. But to me, the keynote sessions, that first session that's starting at 2:30, and of course the opening remarks of Dr. Jafari, is a very significant starting launch for this event. Thank you.
Does anyone have a question for any of the 3 people on this stage?
Olivier Desibre from Le Temps. We will hear from the project from China this afternoon as well. Maybe for the first time, I've heard about it, but partially before. Now that China is in, and that we have Israel as well, that we have a Canadian project as well, can we talk of a real race between all those big projects around the human brain?
Yeah, there's Japanese one too, and the Canadian and Japanese are the 2 who are not represented today, but all the others are here. Patrick, maybe.
Competition, there's cooperation and competition, like everything in science. So I think you need both. I think it's the best thing that could happen to the brain is to have more resources coming into having this big initiative. It shows that the vision that some of us had 10 years ago was probably the right one, that this is becoming the subject of the 21st century. And I think having complementary approach, I do not know, I'm looking like you, forward to hear with the Chinese project, but when I look at, for example, the US and the European, they're quite complementary in their approach. In one sense, the US develops really new technology that can be used then to grab data and then use on simulation and so on. So I think that the good thing about it, I don't think we should see it as a really race, because what is it race? The goal is so immense about the brain that I don't think that there's a race and there is no, end point. It is different, like you could have thought about a race of the human genome sequencing, but I think the brain is a new territory. I think, but that's my personal view, is yes, we need to have more science to try to, just by the fact that it's just fascinating to understand what we are, who are we as human beings. But I hope that this knowledge will help down the road, as I was saying, to find therapies. And because I think that's what is lacking the most today. And it's frightening when you look at the impact of some of those diseases coming. I don't think that we have grabbed, the consequences of some of the epidemic. Everybody now speaks about cancer and so on, but you look at the price and the cost of dementia in the coming years in developing countries. Now, we have not been very good at it. We hope that, vaccination and so on will help, and we'll see some positive effect. But I think, the brain is so complex that we need to be much more sophisticated in our therapeutical approaches. And I think that's what I like about those various initiatives. They bring new tools to the field of neuroscience. And I think this is, that was a great initiative to bring, when you look at the US initiative, it brings really strong engineering into it. The human brain projects bring, computer scientists into it, simulation people into it. As my provost said, the brain doesn't belong only to neuroscientists. And I think this is a good thing, that we need to bring more fields to this gigantic challenge. And I think this is one of the, I would say, big and very positive thing about this initiative. So I do not see them as a race, but I see it as people becoming conscious that this is a major issue, and that we have the tools today that we didn't have yesterday that will allow us to better understand the brain, but hopefully also develop more efficient therapies.
Any other question?
Thank you. Jérôme Ducret from the daily newspaper in Lausanne.
Yeah.
What we have here is interesting. It lands to a question. What about financing all these initiatives? You were talking about public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
Do you think they will be indispensable, that it has to go this way in order to achieve something?
So we will have 2 sessions about that, one today about private philanthropy and another on Wednesday, I think, about funding and policy. But who wants to take this question about public-private partnerships? Professor Aebischer again? Yeah.
No, I think it's very important that we get not only the public, I think you need to do the real basic science. You need public support. I don't think that anybody else can for fundamental research. So that is nice about those initiatives. Now you could see that when you have big science project, it raises questions, anxiety in some of the various science sets of science. But I think it's good to have those debates. At the same time, it is bringing more as in philanthropic, and I think the Allen, for example, Institute is a very good example. Paul Allen, one of the 2 founders of Microsoft, that has now invested major resources into the brain area. You look at here in this region, Mr. Hans-Jörg Wyss has funded it up to 100 million, the Wyss Center for Neuroengineering. I would say this is philanthropy, but it's philanthropy that helps also to translate some of those knowledge, which I think is very important. I think we're very fortunate to have some of the key people in the pharma, in the medtech, into nutrition here tomorrow. And I think it's very important that, again, it's not only a question of pharma, but the fact that a nutrition company like Nestlé is interested by those problems is also a good news. It's also a good news to see the medtech getting more and more interested in this area. So you need the translator, the economical translator. That I think is very important. And you will have a couple of presentation of startups, which I think is also a very interesting endeavor to see that companies are now being created around. And again, it's interesting that they come not only from the traditional, but they come from the IT sector in rehabilitation, augmented reality that can be used for the rehabilitation, phantom pain, giving new environment to the brain. We know that the brain has a lot of plasticity. So again, this is unique in this meeting that it brings, if you go usually to a normal neuroscience meeting, it's mainly a neuroscientist. And I think here you have again, as we were saying, the multi-stakeholders coming from the financing part, the public, the philanthropy, foundations, and also the industry. And I think it's only through the concerted efforts that we're going to try to find solution to those major problems.
Maybe I just add one thing, that this is one important aspect of the program, and that's why the last session of this meeting addresses the issue of policy and funding, where both during that session and throughout the meeting we will be exploring the policy and financial landscape around neuroscience research, with the aim of also exploring some new and innovative mechanism to advance this type of research.
And I think, just if I could add, the fact that you have some of the presidents or whatever of major foundation, national foundations funding is a key one. And because there's a lot of debate about where to put your resources and so on. Because when you make a priority, you always have the other people that says, am I a past one? So I think, how do the Swiss National Foundation, the CNRS, other major institutions see it, of how, specialized should you be? Do we need those initiatives, or should we just, let things coming up?
Any other question?
Hello. Good evening, everybody. I'm Said Bohlega from Saudi Arabia. Thank you for this conference. I have a question, which is I think it's very pertinent. I didn't see anything about genetics, at least in the program. We know that this is the tool of the future. Are you moving in this regard?
Actually, the concept of genetics and genome sequencing and its application in psychiatric and neurodevelopmental disorders will be addressed on the session of Neuro Translation. It will be one main subject of the speakers and the discussion panel.
But just to give you an example, it's interesting that the Broad Institute, Steve Hyman at the Broad Institute, has just raised recently 650 million for the genetics of psychiatric disease. This is this kind of big money that comes into the area that we didn't see before. And I think this is, again, an encouraging feature of the evolution of neuroscience research in the coming years.